So, following the release of Superman, I wanted to dive into what the future of the DCU could look like. So, starting with the overall direction of Superman, I really think that this was not just the start of this new movie franchise, but really a trailer for what this world building will look like. And I really think the biggest question following this is this the right tone for the DCU? I think you have a pretty silly or lighthearted feel to this movie. I think there is a heavy emphasis on the fantastical side of this. And I really think a lot of early descriptions of the movie revolve around this feeling like a comic book adapted directly to the big screen rather than the comics just being inspiration. And I really think with the style kind of similar to Guardians of the Galaxy, there is a lot going on. There's a lot stuffed into the plot, whether it's the characters or side plots or villains. And it looks like even though that this is a Superman movie, it doesn't look like there's really a solo focus. There is still a team built around him, and there's a lot less focus on the origin tale of Superman. So while future movies might be a little bit different than this, I think this is likely the biggest blueprint for what other DCU movies will look like. And I really think it's going to be a question of how the audience at large will respond or either accept or kind of partially reject this new feel. Another question that would go hand in hand is how long that this is really going to last for, because this is, at the end of the day, the second reboot for this world. So I think you're likely not going to want to do a third reboot anytime soon, because that, of course, would just be too confusing and wouldn't look good for overall consistency. So I think you're likely, regardless of how Superman does or how the DCU does overall, I think you are going to have a commitment until at least the first Justice League movie, because that's what we got before. So with that, I think a lot of curiosity is going to be centered around how soon you can get a Justice League movie in the future. Looking at both the DCEU before this or the MCU, it looks like the track is about 4 to 5 years between the first movie of the franchise to the first team up, whether that's the Justice League or the first Avengers movie. So going by that rate, unless there's any significant delays, I think the soonest you would get a Justice League movie is about 2030. So looking at what's next for the DCU, we do have some initial plans. You have Supergirl and the Clayface movie being a loose confirmation for 2026 movie releases, and you also have the Lanterns show, or the show focusing on the Green Lantern characters, aiming to come out in 2026 as well. So I would say just by the initial look of these, I think these are a lot of niche projects. I don't think neither of these are as big of a draw as the Superman name within itself, but I think that will be interesting. In terms of any sequels or other solo movies of major Justice League characters, I think there is interest for a continuation of Superman, but it looks like it's not going to be a direct sequel. There was talk leading up to the movie's release of maybe doing a team-up movie with Batman and Superman instead of their clash in the DCEU. So that could be interesting as well, but I think with the character of Batman, you really have a lot of questions in terms of what you will do with this character, and I really think a lot of that has to do with Matt Reeves or Robert Pattinson's The Batman franchise, and you do have the script being finished recently as well. So even though that will come out in 2027, I think there still is a little confusion on whether to integrate that into this DCU, even though that doesn't look to be the initial plan due to that universe having a pretty different style than what's established here. Or of course, the other option is doing a new Batman for this world, and we really have some early plans of the Brave and the Bold movie But realistically, I think if you are doing the Batman in 2027, I don't see a Batman Brave and the Bold movie coming out until 2028 or 2029. But besides some of the main core Justice League members, I think really a crucial decision for the DCU will be who the big bad villain will be going forward. Because really looking at the MCU, I do kind of think you need a Thanos for this to be effective and for this to really build towards something in the future. And I think this could be a lot of options. I think you could continue with some of the setup of villains in Superman and expand those. Obviously, comparing this to the MCU, which is the biggest direct competition for the DCU going forward, I think you have a lot of questions in terms of how the DCU will be unique. Because looking at Marvel or the MCU, I do think that they were in a little bit of an easier place when the MCU first started, because while the superhero genre wasn't new in live action, I would really say that the MCU was the first major franchise to really build on continuity and really to create a team up world of superheroes over a span of several movies, and they really were the first successful group to do that. So really, I think for the DCU, not only do you have to replicate that success, but still find a unique way to make this world feel different. And really in comparison, I think there isn't a superhero fatigue right now, but I do think there is a little bit of a multiverse fatigue. I think with the expansion of that in the MCU, it has worked in certain aspects, but I think overall it has led to a little bit of redundancy and confusion. But regardless of that, I don't think you can just recreate that with the DCU. I do think you saw a little bit of an attempt to do that, or at least to test that out with the Flash movie, but I don't think that is the proper direction for the DCU unless they put their own unique spin on the multiverse. But regardless of specifics, I think an overall interest will be on whether this franchise can beat out the MCU, and I think that has to be done in a few different ways. I think for one, it's just enough of a challenge to even beat out the MCU for attention right now or for attention in the future, because right now you have Superman versus Fantastic Four. But I think the real question will be whether the DCU can keep building momentum and really compete with the future release of the Avengers Doomsday movie. If the Justice League movies can really go toe-to-toe with that in the future, I think that's going to be an interesting question. And if it is able to get past that, I think another question will be whether it can beat out what the MCU's done in the past. So I think there is a lot of high margins that the DCU would have to pass, but I really think it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But feel free to let me know your thoughts on this, and I'll see you later.